Alright guys, welcome. It's Math 3. Today we're looking at compositions of functions. We're actually going to start with just evaluating functions and then do some function operations. That's really all we'll cover in this lesson. We'll do actual compositions tomorrow. So evaluating functions, just a reminder of what it means to evaluate. Want to really emphasize this word evaluate. It means find the value, okay? And how we find the value is we plug in. And of course the better word for that is to substitute, but most of you guys say that you plug in. You plug in for the variable and simplify. So to evaluate a function, we're going to substitute in and then simplify. So very important we understand that vocabulary. Now I have three functions here, f, g, and h, so make sure you pay attention which one's which. On number one, it's f, so we're going to plug into the f function. Alright, if I plug in a 2 to the x for x on the f function and evaluate, 4 times 2 is 8 minus 2 is, 8 minus 10 is negative 2. On the second one, notice I'm using g, so I use the g function. I'm careful with my substitution and I just follow through, use my calculator or the order of operations, end up with 5. On the third one, notice I'm using h, so I'm going to use the h function there, and I end up getting a 2. That's simple substitution. You guys have done that for years now. Now, of course, number 4, I'm now substituting an expression into it. I'm going to substitute the 2x. I'm still going to use function f, but this time instead of just a number, I'm going to put in the 2x. Really, you're doing everything the same at that point, and now you just simplify as best you can, and that is the best you can simplify right there. On number 5, I'm going to use the function h, and I'm going to substitute in that binomial. When I do that, of course, now I do have some more simplifying I can do. I've got some distributive property. And then combine like terms. And you end up with negative 2 minus 5t. Of course, you could put negative 5t minus 2. The last one here, I have m over 4, and we have to remember how to do that. I'm going to use the function g, which is this one. Now, the first thing I have to do, of course, is remember how to square m over 4 squared, and that's going to be m squared over 16. And now I have to remember how to multiply fractions. So I put that negative 2 over 1, and then I multiply those fractions. And I have a fraction I can simplify by reducing, and when I reduce I get this. Oops. Alright, so that's your simple substitution. Now we're going to talk about the operations of functions. Okay, our 4 basic operations. These are the operations that we use every day. The first operations we ever learned, of course, are going to be add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And I didn't write those down for you. I apologize. But it's add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Okay, with that in mind, of course, what I'm trying to say, if I write down f plus g of x, what it's really saying is take f of x and add g of x. So f of x is this function, 3x minus 4, and I'm going to add g of x, which is basically like just adding like terms in polynomials. So f plus g of x is really the same function as x minus 9. So I'm just adding like terms together. I can do the same thing with subtraction. So again, this should be pretty straightforward. when I subtract, of course, I need to remember to subtract a negative and to subtract a negative 5. Okay, so just be careful with your subtraction there. Up here, it says multiply. So, of course, what I'm trying to do is to multiply these two functions together. So when I write that down, it looks like this. And I hope you remember that if you're multiplying and it's two binomials, then you're going to FOIL, right? Yeah, it's been a while. So we're going to FOIL those out. Add your like terms. And it's that simple. Now we can also divide. Now we're only going to touch division just basically. We basically just want to write the problem. We'll do more division later in the semester. But for right now, I do want to talk about what the division means. Yes, it does mean that I'm going to divide f of x divided by g of x. But I have to remember that g of x can never equal 0. And the reason of that is because the denominator can never be 0. Type any number you want to in your calculator and try to divide by 0. Remember, division by 0 is undefined, so I cannot be 0. So I'm just going to plug in and try to do my division. Okay, and remember, we're going to learn how to do this later, but I'm just going to set it up. But I do have to remember right now that the denominator cannot equal 0. So I'm going to say right now the denominator cannot equal 0. If you want to take that a step further, you can actually figure out exactly when it's not 0 just by solving this equation. And I find out that x will be 0 whenever it's negative 5 over 2. So I can never plug in negative 5 over 2 into this function.